Good afternoon, and welcome to H3TV, where we meet every week to talk about how the heck do we navigate disruption? How do we not only navigate it, but stay hopeful and healthy and happy in the midst of it? The changes, the challenges, from weather to jobs to relationships, we all navigate disruption. And so I decided a few years ago, why not have a talk show? I guess it's been 4 years since 2020, and I said H3TV, where we discover how to be hopeful, healthy, and happy in the hard moments of life. Today, I have the pleasure of having my friend and guest, MK, with me. Hey, MK, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Tell us about you. Who are you? What do you do? Where do you live? All the good things.
Yeah, so I was in strategic marketing and communications for more than 25 years, primarily in healthcare, and enjoyed it, worked my way up. I don't know about anybody else, but as I worked my way up, I didn't enjoy it as much. I think when you get into leadership and management, it's not as fun. And then I was in a very bad car accident almost 4 years ago, incurred a traumatic brain injury, and really reassessed my life. And I, quite frankly, was sitting in the ambulance. They're hooking me up to all the IVs and checking my head and honestly making sure that the tissue that was sticking out wasn't my brain, quite literally. And I thought, what am I doing in life? I felt like I was on a treadmill and that I was going nowhere. And so as a result of that, I started a business called Queens of Moxie, and it is all about mindset and resilience and helping others to find joy, purpose, and community. And I do that with inspirational speaking, training, moderating, coaching, a lot of the things that you do. And I do it because I truly believe and love working with others and helping them to find that joy and live in that space.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I forgot to say to our listeners, first, thank you for listening. But second, MK and I both, if you have any questions or comments, or even just a hello and where you're from, we love to see it while we're sharing a little bit of our story. We love to hear a little bit of yours. MK, when you think of the word disruption or challenge, you kind of shared a piece of your story with us, but just in general, how would you define that word to somebody goes, disruption, what? What does that mean? What's a challenge?
Yeah, I think it can be in any aspect of your life. I find that a lot of the people I speak with and talk to are often women in midlife, can be men too. But I find that, we're pouring ourselves into everybody else and making sure everybody's doing okay and carrying that mental load. And then something happens.
Yeah.
For me, it was a really bad car accident. Somebody else, it might be a cancer diagnosis or loss of a parent or loss of a job or any number of things that can really disrupt your life. And unfortunately, often it takes one of those pivotal moments in our lives, those before and after moments where we do stop and assess our lives and figure out, is this really what I want to be doing and where I want to be in my life? My hope is that by people listening to your show and talking to people like you and talking to people like me, that we can say, you know what, let's pump the brakes right now. And let's assess these things so that it's not a major disruptor, but it is a disruption in the way you're thinking and the way you're approaching life so that you get to be in charge and you get to decide thoughtfully where you're going and what you're doing, and you're not just auditing life.
Yeah. I think you gave a lot of great examples. One, though, that you started with that you didn't necessarily say, but midlife can be a disruption, can't it? And especially if we're not prepared for it, right? Like I always feel like we know it's coming, and I don't exactly know when midlife is. For me, it's like when I get to 60, I'll feel like I'm at midlife because I figure I'm going to live to 106. So maybe 60-ish. I've got a few years before midlife. But midlife, when you're prepared for it, can be a refirement rather than a retirement. It can be all these exciting things, but it can be all the other. I think there is disruption is when we're not prepared, right? So the more prepared we can be, but we can't be prepared for a car accident. We can't be prepared for some of the things that come at us. I just got my blood work results today, and I kind of procrastinate going because I hate having needles, and it was all good. And I was like, yes, at least I got good news out of it. So I want to ask you personally or professionally, what was a disruption that you faced that really, it did kind of shake the ground from underneath you, that disruption that hits you hard? I always say mine came with that hurricane, like, woo, it's a wake up call to like, am I going to live and what am I going to do if I live? And you kind of started to talk about that. So what is a personal or professional disruption you'd share with us?
Yeah, I think there's probably two pretty big ones. One was that I was, and we were talking before the show started, I was in a marriage where I had someone who was verbally and emotionally abusive. And getting out of that was one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do. And it takes more strength and courage than you can possibly imagine. And I was lucky because I had my master's degree, I had a professional job, I had a lot of the things that many people don't have. And I was able to get out and financially support myself and my children. But that is definitely one of those pivotal moments where you make a decision. Like, it's the pain of staying is worse than the pain of leaving, and that's a big step. And then, of course, the other one is on February 5th in 2021, height of the pandemic. A man pulled in front of me without looking, and I was going the speed limit, but it was 60 miles an hour. And I didn't have time to even slow down. And I swerved to try to miss him, hit the bed of his truck. I rolled 360, spun around 180, and my head was split open from front to back. And it was a disruptor on every level you can possibly imagine. My brain, I went from being an executive to being on disability. Like, and initially they do this computerized test to see how you process information and everything. And initially my processing speed, like how long it would take me to process what you've just said and decode it and figure out what I want to say, it's on a bell curve. It was 16%. Really bad. And by the end of the first round of physical therapy, it was 64%. So it did absolutely get better, and it continues to get better. But there are things not even 4 years later that I'm like, I am never going to be able to do those things again, ever. And coming to terms with that has been an incredible struggle, because I think I can still do all these things that I used to do, and I can't. So a lot of it is accepting where I am and my new reality and embracing that. And one of the things I like to talk about is resting in the pause of, gosh, I used to go nonstop. I was so busy and I had so much going on and so much stress and so much overwhelm. And you know what? I kind of live like a semi-retirement life right now. It's kind of nice.
Removing that pressure from yourself too, of like that drive. So as you were speaking, I was thinking, man, and I remember this is a number of years ago, but I did a series of like 100 D words. And I just started thinking, well, that goes back to disruption, right? Disruption's a D word. Divorce is a D word. Feeling like you could die is a D word. Devastation, being in the dark, physically, mentally, emotionally, disability, going on disability and feeling like this young, powerful woman who's all of a sudden, wait a minute, I'm on disability and I'm still a mom and I'm still a woman. I got to figure that out. And I love that you said, so I was thinking a lot of D words, but I was thinking acceptance. I often talk about the serenity prayer. For me is like, what can I accept? What can I control? How can I find peace in what I can't control? And you use the word pause. And I think pause is such a powerful word. I think sometimes, especially if we're a go-getter and we're going fast, what else can I do today? What else can I do today? Yes, thank you for our listeners. Make sure to ask questions, comments, or let us know where you're from. We always appreciate having you on. Pause. I think we don't live in a society that honors pause. And yet I think pause is necessary for self-care, for healing, for moving forward, for just accepting what is. So I love that you use the word pause and acceptance. Those are really power words that sometimes are considered weak words. I think they have full of strength to have acceptance of what is and what we can change and what we can do. I also love that you gave us the exact number, 16% to 64, which shows us that when we put work into even devastation or disruption in our life, things can change. And I always feel like with disruption, darkness can come. That disruption can feel like a cloud, whether it's physical, financial, emotional, relational. It can feel like darkness, a heavy cloud. And in darkness, we sometimes lose light or we lose hope. So I'm always curious when I'm interviewing people, MK, how did you stay hopeful in the like, holy cow, I'm an executive. I'm a super smart woman. And now I can't process a sentence. And now I can't think. And I still want to be a mom and a human being. So how did you find hope in the midst of that really hard, especially right after the accident or right after the divorce?
Yeah. I think it's kind of, and I'm not going to get the quote right, but it talks about how we can't appreciate the sunlight if we don't have darkness. And, I was fully cognizant of the fact that I could have very easily died in this car accident, very easily. And I'm here on this earth for a reason. And I truly believe that I am here to help other people to find that joy, to find that purpose, to find their community, to adjust their mindset in a way that will help them to live in those spaces. And knowing that I'm here for our higher purpose, that I'm here to make a difference and to really pour into others so that they can be their best. That gave me and continues to give me just an incredible amount of motivation and excitement. And even today, I was at a networking thing this morning, and two separate women pulled me aside to say something about how me sharing some of my stories impacted them and how important it was. And, and it's when I hear those stories, when I have those encounters with other individuals, that I recognize I can make a difference. In fact, all of us, every one of us can make a difference.
Yes.
And so I was never, woe is me. I was never like, I think about the things that I've lost only in the sense that I have to make accommodations for those things. Like, I can't do it the way I used to, so let me figure it out another way. But I am just a very positive person. And so I'm always looking towards what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? What can I do to make this a good situation? And, and like when I think about Moxie, Queens of Moxie came about because I love the word Moxie. It's all about chutzpah. It's all about sass. And you know what? I got that. Like, there's no shortage of Moxie in me. But I also talk so the 5 letters of Moxie are how I help others think about this framework. And so it's developing your personal mantra or mission statement. So why are you here on this earth? What's important to you? The O is optimism. We know that gratitude is one of the highest frequencies of energy. And we know that if we make a conscious effort to pay attention to the things that we're grateful for, we are going to exceed our expectations. We know that our brain cannot tell the difference between an actual memory and what we rehearse in our brains, like the scenarios that we play out. Our brain can't tell the difference between those. So let's put it positive, optimistic things. The X is all about your superpowers, your extra super things. Like, what is it that you bring to this earth that only you bring to this earth? What is it that makes you stand out? The I is your inner circle. It's those peeps, it's who fills you up, but who you fill up, who you can be in your pajamas with bedhead, and it doesn't matter, and you can be there crying on the couch or laughing hysterically. Those are your peeps. How do you develop and grow that? And then the E is all about ease, which is what we were talking about earlier. So for me, I meditate every morning. I'm very conscious of mindfulness. I really focus on being in a space and in a time that is going to ground me. And I moved to the beach not even a year and a half ago, because I wanted to be at the ocean so that I could sit and meditate in front of that ocean and see the waves, hear them, feel the mist on my face, the sand in my toes, smell that salt air, every bit of that, and ground myself in it. So it's all of those things.
I love that. It's the nature. That's totally my 30-year dream too, that it moved me to the beach. But one thing you said right away, which I was walking the beach this morning and thinking about service animals and how many people, when I go through the airport, have service animals. And I was like, I wonder if it's because we have less service people. I wonder if less people have support people in their life, so they need an animal. And one thing you said right away that gave you hope, and I love that, brings us back to keep going when life gets hard, is when we recognize, first of all, it's not about us. I love the book, The Purpose-Driven Life, starts with it's not about you. But second of all, that it is about how we help others. It is about the impact we make on others. And sometimes, sadly for us, it takes a near-death experience to wake us up to, wait a minute, it's not all about me and how many things I can get done. It's about the difference I make in other people's lives along the way. Helping people is the purpose. And I believe that we're all created to serve one another, but that we sometimes get so busy in serving ourselves. And I remember I was in a Bible study 100 years ago, and women would talk about just about their spouse and their kids. And I was like, I never have thought like that. And even I tell my kids, as much as I love them, I'm like, I love you guys and I want you to love me and I want to be a nurturing mom. but I want to be a nurturer to the world. I want to be an encourager to every person I encounter, from a cashier to a waitress to somebody in an audience to a coaching client, just like you. Like when you realize that purpose, like if you feel this much darkness and devastation, what do other people feel around you? And so finding your hope, finding your purpose, part of that was discovering it wasn't about just what MK can accomplish as an executive and look at her go and holy cow, she is flying high and doing this. It's about that slowing down and going back to your pause, and that we are created to serve one another, and that we all have, I love your X's, like, what is your unique gift? And first we discover, but then how are we using it to the greatest degree to first love the people in our inner closest circle, but then beyond. And that we have this, I don't know, when I was seeing service animals this morning, I was like, what about service people? What about loving one another? What about showing up without your headphones and your phone and actually looking at people and bring it back to the pineapple? And so the second thing I always like to talk to people about MK, because I owned 2 gyms for 12 years, but I always think like it wasn't just physical health. And the more I talked to people about physical health, the more I realized, oh, it was emotional. It was childhood wounds. It was financial irresponsibility and not knowing that it was okay to say no to things, or I can't afford it, or shift without feeling like you're deprived. So how did you, whatever area of health for you, especially coming out of the hospital and kind of really starting at ground zero again, what were some of the steps that you took, literally or figuratively, to get healthy, whatever that means to you? How did you get yourself healthy in your mind and body again, and finances?
One of the things that was extremely difficult, and honestly still is that I need a nap every afternoon for about an hour and a half. Now, that does not work well with the executive 40-hour plus week. It just doesn't. And initially it was way more than that. Like I was sleeping all the time. And when you have a brain injury, the way your brain heals is to rest.
That's right.
And you know, I would ask them, well, how much longer am I going to be taking a nap? How much longer until I get my cognitive function back? How long am I going to get my neural pathways back? Like, and I can remember my primary care doctor, he had been my PCP for 15 years. He's my age. His kids are my kids' age. I worked at the hospital in strategic marketing and communication. So I knew him beyond just a typical relationship of a provider and a patient. And he looked at me and he said, Mary Kay, you're probably never going to be the same. And I was just, oh gosh, because that was really early on. And I thought, well, you know, this is like anything else I've ever, I was an athlete. I got injured. You know, people get injured when you're an athlete, especially a very competitive athlete like I was. So I thought, oh, I'm just going to work hard. And recognizing that no matter how hard I work, I'm not going to be able to do some of those things is hard. But resting is a huge, huge piece of it for me. I used to do kickboxing 4 to 6 times a week. I tried to go back to kickboxing and my vertigo came back. That's not an option anymore. So what is an option? You know what? Walking. Okay. Is it high power? Is it a full body workout? Is it core? Is it? No, but it's moving. It's moving. I even tried to do like the straps and strength class, and I tried to surf. I did all these different things, and my physical therapist, because I still go to physical therapy every week, said, don't do that. It's not good for your brain. I have a mountain bike I can't use because I'm not allowed to mountain bike. Like, so adjusting what my expectations are, but still finding ways of doing that. You know, before I moved here, I was in Charlottesville, Virginia, and I would go to the mountains. I'm very tuned into nature. And so whether it's sitting on the top of the mountain at an overlook and being quiet and mindful, or sitting on the beach, looking at the waves, finding quiet time, nurturing my friendships. I have amazing friends, both in Charlottesville and here in Wilmington. And I'm in Wilmington, North Carolina. I don't know if I said that before or not, but, and you have to make an effort with your friends. You can't just expect it to keep, you have to be the one sometimes to say, hey, we're going to have a dinner party. Hey, I'm going to have this ornament exchange party. Hey, let's have a wine night. Hey, let's come over and have some coffee. Whatever it might be. It could be for a group, it can be individual, it can be a couple of you. And all of my adult life, I have formed different groups of people. One of my superpowers is bringing together people from totally different aspects of my life. And everyone's always like, you are a super connector. I love this group of people. We all just gel. And for my 50th birthday, I had 7 people who had never met each other come to the beach for a long weekend, and we all left great friends. They were all my great friends to start with, but they didn't know each other. So it is truly about all of those things. And, you know, I love music, so singing and listening to music. I love to read, so I read. I love art, so I paint. It's finding those things that are gonna fill you up and fulfill you. And, you know, again, for me, it's finding what my limit is and being okay with that and giving myself permission to, you know what? I used to do 20 things a day, now I do 1. Okay, it's different, but let's pick the one thing that's most important.
Yeah.
And making a commitment to yourself. So I make a commitment that I'm going to meditate in the morning. I make a commitment that I'm going to do the grateful journal at night. So both the things that I'm grateful for that day, as well as the things I'm manifesting. These are the things that I'm writing it as if it's already happened. Thank you for bringing me this into my life, whatever it is. So it's training my brain and my body and everything to fully embrace those beautiful aspects of life.
I feel like one of the things that keeps you healthy is that you have chosen to reset your framework of your day and to reset positivity into your brain. Like you're just downloading it every day, starting your day with it, ending your day with it. I think that's a really important tip for our listeners is she didn't say she's doing 72 things every day. She said, every morning I'm doing some meditation. Every night I'm doing some gratitude. I'm believing it and seeing it before it even happens. I'm speaking it. The other thing you said is acceptance. I think that one of the hardest things, if we are a very highly driven go-getter in life, is to accept when things are slower. Now, I do not have a brain injury, and I hope I never have a brain injury, but I am a huge opponent of nap time. I don't care whether you need one or not. At least once a week, take a nap. I love naps. When people are like, oh, I feel guilty I nap, I'm like, I don't. I think the nap's the greatest gift in the world. And I don't do it every day, but at least once a week, I take a nap, and I don't care if it's 20 minutes or 2 hours. When my body goes, that's enough looking at the screen, going, let me just slow down. So I love that you shared you take a nap. I think that's I wish I could take everyone's guilt and shame away from taking naps. Like, if your body's telling you you're tired, be tired. I remember when I was pregnant, I thought my body was yelling at me louder about what to eat and when to rest and whatever. And my doctor said, no, it's not yelling louder. You're just listening better. He said, our body always tells us, I need more iron. I need a nap. I need to slow down. I need more vegetables. It's just that usually we're too busy going that we never hear it. I think that's great. Yeah. Also, I love like letters. Like I'm thinking about all the D words and I was like all the A words, like adapt, acceptance. But then I thought about M words and I love movement. I do not care. I was a gym owner. I would always say, do what works for you. Move your body. I don't care if you dance, you walk, you lift weights, you kickbox. MK had to adapt. Like that wasn't your thing. You wanted to be more aggressive. Do this. No, I'm going to walk. It's something. And it's medicine. That's what I think. Movement is medicine and music, uplifting music and good connections. Sometimes relationship conversations I have a lot with clients and people are like, I'm lonely or my kids grew up or I don't have, and I'm like, it takes effort and it takes energy. And it's not that people don't like you. It's that everybody's overwhelmed by their lives. Right. And so they only give as much as they can. They do work and they come home and they pass out. You know, they don't necessarily initiate. So those few of us that are willing to initiate is such a gift to the people that, and look, I love that one of my favorite girlfriends weekends was 15 of us. One woman invited 7 friends and invited them each to bring another friend. And 15 women showed up at this cabin. And those friends are still my friends today. And I didn't know anybody but one woman when we went. And it was just such a beautiful, beautiful thing. So you've kind of touched on this, but I'd love to hear, how do you stay happy and humorous and just find joy and happiness in your life when it's hard?
Well, I think shifting things. So for example, I love theater. I love the symphony. I love cultural things. I don't necessarily have the budget right now to do all the things that I want to do. So you know what I do? I volunteer. It fulfills something for me because I'm making a difference in an area where they really, truly need people. And I get to see the shows.
That's a good idea.
I'm going to a Bach choral concerto tonight for Christmas, a holiday one. I love Bach. Bach is one of my favorite composers. I am so excited about it. So I make a conscious effort to do the things that I enjoy. I journal. I make a conscious effort to do things with friends. I sing in the contemporary band at my church because it brings me joy. I am not a very good singer. I'm not. I'm a okay singer. I'm not bad, but I'm not great. But you know what? Every single Sunday that I sing, people come up, even when I don't, because I don't get to sing every Sunday. Even when I don't, people come up. I love when you're up there dancing. And I met someone we were repairing a home for a mother of four recently through my church, a mission trip. And this woman I met, she goes, "Oh, you're the dancing one."
I love that.
Yes, I'm the one up there at the front of the sanctuary dancing while I'm singing.
I love that. And look at the joy, just even talking about it, the joy it's bringing you. I remember our worship leader at our church in Minnesota, because I'm always singing big and I love to sing. I'm not a great singer. And one time he's like, "You should be like part of the worship team. Like you're a great singer. Like I see you." So, and I go, "No, I actually am tone deaf. I literally have this guy that I love his voice. So I try to sit in front of him. So I hear his voice as I'm singing loud." And I said, "I'm just animated." So I love that you do it anyway. So two things you just said, MK, that I really want my listeners to hear. Two things. So when I first started my business 14 years ago, it was called No More Excuses for You. Partially that was owning a gym, and that was just life. I had overcome so many things. And I thought I would meet people and they'd say, "Yeah, but da, da, da. I can't be happy because blah, blah, blah. Well, this happened to me. Well, I dated someone bad. Well, I married someone bad. Well, my boss was mean." And I was like, no. I can't work out because we've always been heavy, or I don't have money. I love what you said. No more excuses for you. MK saying, "Here's what I love. Theater and symphony and all this, but I can't really afford it." So I could just sit home and go, "Well, I can't go." But instead, she solved her own problem. That's what I want you guys to hear. Solve your own problem. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's without challenge. Life is challenging. But if you want something bad enough, you will figure out a way. Be an usher, volunteer. And in the midst of your own pain, I think one of the things that brings us the greatest joy is you're talking about a family you serve. You're talking about singing. You're not getting paid to sing at church. She's singing because it brings her joy. And not only does it bring you joy, MK, as you realize, it brings people watching you joy. Because they could be having a hard day and they see you up there dancing and they think, "Oh, her life's easy." No, it's not. She has just chosen to live in happiness and joy, to navigate away and not say, "Well, I can't afford it. I guess I'm never going to go." No, I'm going to figure it out. I'll volunteer and I'll still get experience while I serve people and help the organization, help the theater. So I don't know. That just made me so happy when you said I became an usher. I was like, look at that. Problem solved. Right. And look, I always feel like in every situation, you can look at, how can I make this better? Or how about if I'm bitter about it because my life's hard? Yeah. A lot of people's lives. In fact, most people at one time or another go through something really hard, if not a lot of hard things.
Right.
To use that passion, that energy for something good. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I know you're about Moxie. I know you're the queen of Moxie. People always ask me, "What are you the queen of?" I'm like, "I want to be a princess." They're like, "Aren't you an adult and married?" I'm like, "Well, kind of, but I don't know. I'm not that grown up." But I love that you're the queen of Moxie. So what I want to know is a success story. So you have been through different things in your life. You've had immense success. You've had challenges. But today you're saying, "Wait a minute, I found my purpose." And it is really to help other people. So what I'd love to hear is a story of somebody you worked with. Please don't share a name, but somebody you worked with that maybe you met them and they had lost their Moxie, or they didn't even know they had Moxie. And you kind of helped them on that journey through speaking or coaching and work with them. What is one of your success stories you can share with our listeners today?
You know, it's interesting because I think anytime you're in this industry, you hope that you make a difference, and you think maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I remember I was speaking at the Missouri State SHRM conference, the Society for Human Resource Management, and I was doing a breakout session. I don't know, I had 100 and some people in my room, and I was talking specifically about invisible disabilities because I have an invisible disability. Most people have no idea that I have a traumatic brain injury, and this woman came up to me afterwards. You know, Annie, what it's like. People come up and there's like a line of people and stuff, and she started crying, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I got, I was still on the stage at that point, so I came down and I was like, "Can I hug you?" And she's like, "Yes." And I gave her this great big hug, and her dad was in a bad car accident and has a traumatic brain injury, and she said to me, "You have just given me so much hope, and so much hope for my dad," and she was just in tears. And I thought, all I did was share my story. And, I work with people individually, coaching them. I moderated a panel on invisible disabilities for the Association Executives of North Carolina, and got so many people coming up and talking about it. And, there's story after story, but that one really struck home for me because it was in this big situation, with 100 people in the room. And that's a harder way to connect with people. When I'm working with people one-on-one, or it's a small discussion group or a workshop, I get to know people more individually. But that was a situation where just sharing my story helped her to connect. And in that same time, I had a time at the end where people could come up and share stories about how organizations have supported people with individuals with invisible disabilities. And this woman came up and she said to the microphone, in front of 100 and some people, I have bipolar disorder, and I have some team members in here and they don't know it. And this is the first place that I've shared it publicly. And this is what my company has done to support me. And you could hear this, it's human resource people, right? And you could hear this collective in the room. And I was like, I said to the person, thank you so much for honoring us with that story and sharing and being vulnerable. Yeah. And what I would ask is those of you in this room, what you learn in this room, take out, but what you hear in this room, keep it confidential, and honor her sharing this. But thank you for being so vulnerable. And when you can create a space where people can share something that vulnerable in front of strangers and colleagues, you know that you're doing something that's impacting others. And so, and there are other stories from that one time that I feel like it's such an honor and just such a privilege. Like, I truly feel like when people share stories with me all the time. Like when I taught at NC State University, I had several students who told I was the only person they told they were pregnant, or, things like that. And so this has been something that all my life has happened. But I think when you can be authentic and genuinely care about people, and what happens with them, they know that you're safe and that you're going to honor them. And so I just feel so honored to be a part of this journey with other people and to support and love them through whatever it is that they're going through. It's just, it is something truly, like, it makes me humble and feel like I feel so blessed. I really, truly feel blessed when I have these kinds of opportunities.
Well, and MK, you have a gift. I mean, one thing part of what I always feel like makes speakers brilliant and excellent is the environment they create. And so whenever you're creating an environment, sharing a piece of your story, teaching some lessons that the audience feels safe to come share their story, that is really powerful. When you create an environment that people feel safe to be vulnerable in front of the whole audience to share a story, that is really powerful too. And the part that I do a lot of mental health speaking is that I don't think saying I'm bipolar should be any different than saying I have cancer. They're both vulnerable, right? And I love that you created that space to respect this and honor this, and the person's being brave. But it is fascinating when we step back and go, what is their story? What's going on with them that I'm not seeing or hearing? I always say one of my gifts is that I hear what people don't say. And when they're talking traumatic brain injury and mental illness, diagnosis of any sort, or family history, secret or dysfunction, is that when you recognize everybody has a story, no matter how buttoned up and put together they look, it just allows us to show up with more grace, compassion, and kindness. So MK, kind of my final question I want to kind of close us out with is there anything you would have told a younger MK prior to either the divorce or the accident? Is there something you wish you would have known prior to that driven, hardcore MK, I'm going to rise to the top girl, lady? So tell us if there's any wisdom you can tell to our younger listeners that maybe are just beginning their life and feeling like, I'm good, but not recognizing we all face disruption. So what sort of encouragement would you give to yourself or someone?
Yeah, it would be that I'm worthy. Mm-hmm. I'm worthy. And, or you're worthy in that situation, that you are good enough. It's that, I'm not going to get the quote right, but the Winnie the Pooh quote about you're braver than you think, you're stronger than you believe, all of those things. We especially women, we tend to beat ourselves up, and we tend to, and if you are a competitive athlete, or if you are a type A personality, it's always perfection you're striving for and not excellence. And,
Yeah.
you know, and so you have this unrealistic expectation and the imposter syndrome, or that internal dialogue that is so much worse than what you would ever say to any friends. And if I could go back and say, MK, you are good enough, and you're not just good enough, you're great, and you're worthy of so much. And I want you to see how spectacular you really are, and believe it.
Yes.
Believe it. And so that's what I would say to the younger and even older, because, you know, let's face it, we all have that imposter syndrome, right? I would say that to your viewers is, golly, you're so much more than you think you are.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's that Einstein quote that if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it's going to live its life thinking it's stupid. Like, you know, no, let's not judge by all these superficial standards. Let's figure out where is it that you excel, and let's focus on what you're good at, not all the things you can't do, but what can you do, because you're good. You're good.
I think it's kind of like that. You are enough, period. Not when you perform, not when you win, not when your makeup looks right, not when you're tall enough, not when, you know, it's you're good enough, period. And then it's just all the things that we do to try and prove it to ourselves or to someone else. And there's such joy when you're like, I'm enough. And I still want to do great work in the world, and I still want to impact other people's life, but I don't have to have value. So MK, we're going to kind of close out our time together. Thank you so much to our listeners for being with us. But MK, what is the best way, if someone's listening and they want to know more about you, the work you do, or just you as a person, what's the best place for them to connect with you?
It's to go to my website. So it's queensofmoxie.com.
Okay.
And you can see the spelling there. So it's easy. It's just, and that way you can find out what I do and how to reach me and learn a little bit more.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us, MK. Thank you so much for our listeners. We always appreciate your comments, your encouragement, your questions. We're here to serve, as we both recognize the greatest purpose is serving other people. So thank you. Thank you, MK, for being with me, and have a great rest of the day. Take care.
Thank you.